That day, I learned that betrayal doesn't always come with a knife. Sometimes it comes with a smile. I still remember sitting in that notary's office, my heart pounding as he unfolded the papers that would change everything. The air felt heavy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. My family waited in silence, expecting comfort, closure, maybe even a few tears. But when the notary read the words aloud, our world cracked open. The will had been changed. Every cent of my father's fortune was gone, stolen right under our eyes. And the person responsible was the one we trusted the most. I didn't know then that this was only the beginning, that the truth waiting behind those signatures would destroy everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and family. Everything began on a cold afternoon when I received a letter from the notary. The handwriting was formal, but the tone carried something heavier than legal matters. It carried secrets. As I walked into that old office filled with the scent of polished wood and dust, I could feel the tension waiting to explode. My siblings were already there, whispering about our late father's estate. But when the notary cleared his throat, a silence fell that felt like the pause before a storm. He unfolded a single document, a modified will, and suddenly our family's world began to unravel. The moment those words left his mouth, I felt my pulse racing. Our father's fortune, everything he had built through decades of sacrifice, was gone, transferred to an account none of us recognized. I remember the look on my sister's face, pale, trembling, her eyes begging for reason. But there was none. The notary himself looked uncomfortable, avoiding our gazes as if he knew more than he was saying. Questions swirled in my head like wildfire. Who could have done this? How could the will have changed? And most of all, why? My brother insisted it was a mistake, that perhaps father had been deceived. But I knew our father. He was meticulous, cautious, and fiercely protective of his legacy. Someone had tampered with that will. The notary's tone became defensive as we pressed him for answers, yet every word only deepened the mystery. He mentioned the name of a witness, someone unexpected, someone who shouldn't have been involved at all. Daniel, our family's longtime friend and confidant. The man who had always seemed so loyal, so harmless, so innocent. Daniel had been there for every milestone, every family crisis. He was the quiet presence who offered advice, who smiled without envy. The thought of him being involved felt like betrayal on a spiritual level. I felt anger creeping beneath my ribs, cold and sharp. Still, I tried to reason it out. Maybe he had just witnessed the document, nothing more. But when I asked to see the papers, the notary hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. The truth was darker than we imagined. In that moment, I realized that our fight wasn't just about money. It was about uncovering the lie that had rooted itself deep within our family. A lie carefully planted and nurtured by someone we loved. The inheritance wasn't lost by chance. It was stolen, piece by piece, by hands we once trusted. And I swore to myself I would uncover every secret, no matter how much it hurt. I began digging through the past, retracing every decision father made before his death. Old letters, phone records, financial statements, all of them painted a story that didn't make sense. The more I searched, the more I found Daniel's fingerprints hidden everywhere, transfers signed in his presence, meetings arranged on his advice, even legal drafts bearing his handwriting. It was as if he had woven himself into every part of our family's fortune, unnoticed and undetected. That realization sent a shiver down my spine. We had been living next to the very thief we were looking for. My sister begged me to stop, saying I was letting grief cloud my judgment. But my instincts screamed that I was right. Each clue was a thread, and pulling one only revealed another knot of deceit. I discovered that months before father's death, Daniel had convinced him to update his will for tax reasons. He had also introduced the lawyer who later disappeared after the signature. The pattern was clear now. Daniel hadn't just been a friend, he had been the architect of our downfall. I confronted him once casually, pretending to seek comfort. His calmness terrified me. He smiled with that same soft expression that had always disarmed us, his tone gentle, even caring. But behind those kind eyes, I saw calculation, a quiet satisfaction. When I mentioned the missing fortune, he sighed as if burdened by my suspicion. Grief makes us see ghosts, he said. Yet in that moment, I knew this man was no ghost. He was the storm itself. I returned home that night, unable to sleep. Every memory replayed like a film in my mind. Daniel helping father with his medication, Daniel staying late in the office, Daniel comforting my mother when the stress became too much. It all made sense now. The timing, the influence, the subtle manipulation. He had been building this plan for years, brick by brick, until the day he struck, and we never saw it coming. I wrote everything down, every name, every date, every whisper of evidence. I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice and truth, because in a family built on pride and legacy, the worst crime wasn't theft. It was betrayal disguised as love. I arranged to meet Daniel one last time. I chose a public place where pretense would have no room to hide. When I arrived, he was already there, smiling that same quiet smile. His clothes were immaculate, his eyes calm, but his hands trembled slightly, betraying what he feared most, exposure. I laid the documents on the table between us and watched the color drain from his face. The truth had finally cornered him. He tried to deny it at first, of course. He said I misunderstood, that my father had wanted him to manage things, but every signature, every bank transfer, every hidden account said otherwise. His mask cracked slowly, painfully, and then, in a tone colder than I had ever heard from him, he said, "Your father trusted me more than any of you. I only took what I was owed." Those words struck like a blade. It wasn't just greed, it was pride. He truly believed he deserved everything we had lost. I could have called the police right then, but part of me hesitated. Because beneath all the anger, I saw something tragic. A man who had been part of our family for so long, yet always felt like an outsider. His crime wasn't born overnight. It had grown from jealousy, from years of feeling lesser. But sympathy couldn't erase the truth. He had betrayed us. He had betrayed me. I turned and walked away, leaving him in silence. The notary, when presented with the evidence, had no choice but to reopen the case. Slowly, painfully, the truth emerged. The forged documents, the fake accounts, the lies. It didn't bring back the fortune, but it brought something far more important: clarity, and perhaps peace. In the end, Daniel vanished from our lives, swallowed by the very shadows he once manipulated. The scandal faded, but the scars remained, invisible yet eternal. Trust, once shattered, never truly heals. Months passed, and the house felt emptier than ever. Not because of the lost wealth, but because of the silence it left behind. Our family stopped speaking of Daniel, as though silence could erase his name. Yet every time I walked through Father's study, I could feel his presence lingering, not Daniel's, but Father's, as if reminding me that truth, no matter how painful, must always surface in the end. I used to think money was what held us together, but in the ruins of deceit, I learned otherwise. What binds a family is not inheritance, it's honesty. And we had lost ours long before Daniel's betrayal. We lost it the moment we trusted without questioning, loved without understanding, and stayed blind for the sake of peace. Sometimes at night, I still hear Father's voice in my mind, calm, steady, forgiving. I imagine him saying he never meant for any of this to happen. Maybe he saw the signs and ignored them, believing love could save everyone. But love without truth is a dangerous illusion. It blinds you until the moment the lie finally shatters. I've rebuilt my life since then, not with wealth, but with wisdom. I guard my trust carefully now, giving it only where it's earned. The fortune we lost can be regained, but innocence, once broken, can never be restored. And every time I look at the notary's letter, still preserved in my drawer, I remember the cost of silence. And that's why I tell this story, not as a tale of greed, but as a warning, because the greatest betrayal often comes wrapped in kindness, and the most dangerous lies are the ones told with love. Life teaches us that not all who smile wish us well. Sometimes the enemy isn't outside our circle, it sits quietly within it, waiting for trust to open the door. The inheritance we must protect isn't gold or property, it's the truth we owe ourselves. Greed destroys families, but silence destroys souls. When we refuse to question what feels wrong, we give power to deception. It is better to face the pain of truth than to live comfortably inside a lie. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more true stories filled with mystery, emotion, and lessons that stay with you long after the words fade.